Jon, first and foremost, thanks very much for coming on and having a little chat with me today. I'm about 3 weeks into my tenure, so still a little bit nervous, don't know what all the buttons do. You're a little bit further into your tenure, so how's it all going?
Yeah, well, good, thank you. I'm probably not as well versed at this as you, so no, it's all going good so far. Obviously, it's been an interesting few weeks and a couple of days, but yeah.
It has been an interesting few weeks, but I mean, we're here at a high performance centre, and what a place this is. You know, I mean, Curtis Fleming is on one of the windiest days of the year, still making sure that the boys are ready for the big Sheffield Wednesday game. So fair play for them out training. Yeah, so everybody's working hard. But this is a beautiful, beautiful place.
It is, yeah. I mean, it gives us a huge advantage in that sense. You know, we can see it from where we were a couple of years ago. The fact that you've got academy and first team on the same site means that you're not inviting strangers up to the first team environment when they're required. And the fact that they can use the same equipment, be on the same sort of physical programs means that they're far more ready for that environment when they're needed as well. So yeah, it's a real benefit for us.
Well, I mean, it's been brilliant as well, because obviously we've had to bring a lot of people up from the academy, and when they're there, they've already been in and around the first team. Is that what you're saying? So like that.
Yeah, they're not strangers. So I mean, we might be hopping back a few years, but typically, you'd ask if you're short in the first team, you'd be saying, "I need so and so for training, or I need something for training," and you wouldn't necessarily know that individual or know their position or whatever else. You wouldn't necessarily be getting the right person. And if they are, then they're far more likely to not fly in that environment straight away. Whereas now, the 18s are playing here, your 21s are playing here. They're often training up with the first team anyway, the ones that, they can highlight either whether it's through eyes watching the game or whether it's through physical data that's coming through where they say we should have a look at that one because they're going to be likely in and around the first team in the future. Then it just allows them to see that, and that should be part of your recruitment as well. Why wouldn't you recruit from your academy when it's on your doorstep before you look externally?
Well, I couldn't agree more, because growing up, if I'm honest, like all my mates who are any good at football weren't at Bristol City, they went to Southampton, and now obviously we're seeing that shift, and we're managing to nurture that indigenous talent.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Southampton was, there was different as well. They had their Bath centre and everything else. But for me, it was never worried about what are they doing. Worried about what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because and I think we've gone past that now. You're right. People used to talk about it, but they wouldn't. They'd be talking about it here now. Because if you're a young player, what are you really looking for? You're looking for opportunity.
Yeah.
So why would you go anywhere else? I mean, it's not about what category of academy you are. It's not even about the facilities, which we've obviously got. It's about the people and the opportunity.
Yeah, and the blueprint's there, because you can see in terms of the people from the academy going on there. Sadly, some of them no longer with us because they've moved on to to be playing on Match of the Day, like Antoine Semenyo, who scored that lovely goal as well the other day. So it's great to see so much of that academy talent really flourish.
It is great to see. Look, we all, as fans, you all love to see local lads, or certainly academy lads as well, in your first team. I don't think there's anything that gives you more pleasure than seeing that, especially when they're doing well. What we've got to get to the stage is that we're providing the platform where, when they do well, we can go up with them and they can stay with us. Yeah. That's what we all want to do. So that's what we're working towards. So the further you get down that line, the more the production line improves, the better we improve as a squad, the more likely that is to happen.
Do you feel we're moving in that direction? Do you think we're getting there?
Yeah, I do. I mean, we've only really been in this building for a few years. We've only really had a real structure within that academy system for probably about 18 months. I don't want to get into detail talking about football styles and everything else. It's not my place.
No, fair enough.
I speak to Brian about it all the time, but you can see that that's making a difference, because if you come and watch the 21s play, you can see them playing with a purpose. You can see it.
Yeah.
Now, if that's the same way the first team are playing, you can very much see taking the player out of that and putting them in the first team, because you're not having to catch up with, or you certainly used to have it as well. If you had a young player played 3 or 4 or 5 games, you think, oh, he probably needs a rest now.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they would break down during the year. The reality is now, if they still might need a mental break, but if you're talking about the physical terms, they're already training the same or more than the first team in that sense, because the first team probably have more games in between there, so there's slightly less in between. But if you're talking about distances covered, effort, whatever else, they're already there. So if they go up in the environment, yes, the level might be higher, yes, there might be a bit more adrenaline or pressure, whatever else, but they've got the tools they need physically to be able to be in that environment and to go from the start. So you're far more likely to see a player come in and stay in and go with it.
Well, and also, I suppose, if you're a mum or a dad of these young lads as well, and they're looking to see who to sign for, you come here and you get your head turned, right?
Yeah, and I think the proof's in the pudding in that sense as well. Like you can show someone the facility will turn your head, the people will turn your head, but what are you going to look for at the end of the day? If you're saying, right, do you want to go to Premier League club here or shiny name here or here, where do you want to go? Well, it depends. It depends what your objectives are, right?
Of course.
If you want as much as you can in a shorter time frame as you can, maybe it is here. But the reality is, this is a much better option for you because you're going to have far better opportunity of having an individual development plan and it being fast tracked. I think you can see from players where they get in and get involved here and have success, it's much easier to take that jump and potentially get more time than going away and having to find your level and then go again. It's hard to go to a Chelsea, a Arsenal, wherever else and make that jump to the first team at a young age.
But I mean, in terms of attracting talent, like, not just young lads, but, established talent, this must be hugely advantageous to bring them down here. And I'm not just talking about the footballers themselves, but I was talking about like potential managers, which is obviously something you have to deal with right now. Showing them around a high performance centre shows that we're serious about being Premier League ready, right?
Absolutely, and it's a great place to come and, work, for a better word. It's not really, I think most people love their job if they're a football player or on the pathway for it. So but what a place to turn up and if you're a professional at anything, what do you want? You want the best tools to do your job.
Yeah.
So you've got that here, and then if you can get the environment right and the people right around it, then you've got as much chance as you could possibly want for.
Do you sometimes find it frustrating, maybe as the chairman, to think that maybe there's not enough appreciation for all the stuff that has happened here over the last kind of 5, 6, 7 years?
Yeah, that's fair enough, and it depends. Football's a very now game. What's happening now, and I think when people reflect, they can see that. But that's probably partly our fault for not, pushing the message and showing as much. But I think I always work on the basis that in time you will 100% be able to see the advantages of it, and if you look back, then you can see how far ahead we are now than we have been. But we all care about winning on Saturday, so you're not out there looking for thanks, but it's probably up to us to explain better where we're doing and what we're doing as well.
I mean, well, this is the perfect platform for that. So if there's anything that you wanted to say to Bristol City fans, first and foremost, what do you think that would be?
Well, look, everything I do, the purpose of turning up is to try and get the club into the Premier League. And what's best for this club and what's best for the city is, why else would you be doing it? So that's a starting point. It's every decision, everything you do comes from that basis. So that might make it hard to believe, because football's in a game of opinions and people aren't always going to agree with you. And that's why you love it. Like the passionate fans, everything else. That's why you love it. It's a great sport. But at the same time, it's probably up to us to explain what we're doing and communicate better so that they understand the part of the journey we're on. They understand our decisions better and they can feel connected to it.
Well, that is very true, but sometimes, I don't know, social media can be like an absolute cesspit. I know that myself, and I don't have the same platform, I suppose, or level of fame, but at the same time, people have still taken to social media and said that I look like someone shaved a monkey and kicked it through Matalan, which I thought was quite mean, because this shirt cost me over 30 quid. Do you ever take note of what gets said on social media, or you do to try and block it out completely?
It's difficult. I think it has changed in the last few years as well, if I'm being honest. I used to find it a really useful place to connect.
Yeah.
To answer, look, it was easier when you could have a meeting somewhere and everyone would turn up, and you could say things that you can't say on social media. You could tell them details that you have to be far more guarded when it's just out everywhere. So that opportunity is there, but it's harder because it's much easier to do a Zoom call than come down to a stadium or whatever else. So look, it's still possible to have those things, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't necessarily do the same. It's not as easy to do that as it was before. And I thought, social media did fill that gap as well, but it's a difficult place. It's a mentally not a positive place.
Yeah.
So even when you're trying to interact with fairly basic things, you find you can't after a while. So look, it has its place and I can see the benefits of it. It's just on a personal point of view, it's gone from someone that was really useful to somewhere where, you know, it's how you try and keep your ear to the ground, but can't really have the interaction you would like.
Well, my old man always goes, I just rise above it. But when you read something about yourself that you don't like, you're like, you know, I just find that immensely frustrating. And you know what? Like, I'm a human being, man. Like, it hurts to have horrible things, you know, written about you. And you're like, there's no context to it sometimes. You're like, I want to be able to say more. And I should imagine in your position, there's probably loads of things that you would love to say, but can't.
Yeah, and look, however thick a skin you've got, I think when you're talking about a football club, if you message me about, could be something inane, and I connect with you, that's great. And whatever's come back to me is fine. But the problem you've got now is what will happen is you'll get a bit as well. So then you're not going to connect with me next time, and you're maybe positive for you having asked something and had an answer, could turn into a negative and not ask again. So that's the bit where it's kind of got trickier for me, is that the reason you almost don't want to go out there is because it just almost exposes the person you're communicating to other stuff as well.
Or things like, you know, there's that kind of willful misinformation where people just take something, twist it and turn it into something that it's not. You know, I don't know, like that frustration must be a problem for you guys.
It does, but I still see the benefits of it. You know, the more football's a game about bringing people together. That's why we do it. And if our fans can connect there and that as well, we just want it to be as a positive a platform for people to feel like they can do that as possible. I don't mean positive in terms of what they're saying. I just mean as in the experience.
But by your own volition, like, you know, sometimes like transparency and communication has been a bit of an issue just lately. Is there anything we can do to rectify that going forward?
Yeah, there is. I mean, but the proof's going to be in the pudding for that, right? So, look, it's not going to improve like that. It's got to be over time where you're trying to get your message out there and trying to interact with supporters in the best way possible.
Is there a plan, or like, you know, because of course, you know, give us a shout whenever you want. You're always welcome to come on the breakfast show. Well, I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning, mind.
No, look, it's something that Richard, when he was here, was very good at as well, and that we definitely had an improvement, and we've had a drop off since. We've got to make sure that doesn't happen, because, you know, fans need to feel involved and loved with it.
Yeah. So, like, you know, for any fans out there that are listening and have got things they want to say, like, what's the best way to?
Look, yeah. I mean, you've got to do that with talking to people from all kind of areas in terms of doing it. I mean, yeah, you can try and give a message to them now, but I don't want it to fall flat. And the only message you can give now is, look, we will look to try and improve it. We obviously can't say everything all the time.
No.
And you know, there's other stuff going on at the moment, but that doesn't mean we can't communicate better leading up to it and have a bit more faith in the process. But you know, for now, they'll do what they always do, and they'll get right behind the team, and that's what they need at the moment. So, look, I can say that they're properly appreciated. They won't necessarily feel like that right now, because they might feel slightly away from it, and you know, we've got to work hard bringing them back closer to it.
And your message then to the fans that are listening is, like, you know, irrespective of whatever you think of what's going on at the moment, get behind the team, back the team, and.
Oh, of course, yeah. I don't want to feel like a false call to arms in that sense. I'd hope they can disagree to the hill with me if they want, in terms of, you know, have you made the right choice, or would you do the same thing? But you can't disagree that you want the right thing for the club.
Yeah.
I've proved that time and time again, whether they've seen it or not, whether we've communicated that well or not. All I want for the team is to get into the Premier League, and in a way where you can stay there and it doesn't fall away at any point. Not necessarily, you can never guarantee you stay there, but you know what I mean. It improves the club and the city to the level that it takes it to a completely different level. That's all we're trying to achieve. Whether we get things right or wrong, time will tell, but it's always coming from a good place.
Like, obviously, sometimes when there's no, like, you know, clear information or communication, then people just make up whatever they want to make up. But some of the things that come up are the Lansdown family going to be in it for the long haul? Are you looking to kind of sell the club, either Bristol City or Bristol Sport? What would you say, like, you know, to fans that are, like, you know, are wondering?
We're fully committed to the club. I mean, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing now if we weren't. It's not the easy thing to do. You'd just be seeing something out and letting it tick along. I care passionately about it, and, you know, fully invested in it here all the time. And even if, if someone wants to say, oh, my dad's further removed from it, then he's not. He still cares about it. He's still passionate about it. And if he wasn't, I'm still am. So.
How is he, by the way? Because he's in Jersey, and Jersey's roofs are blowing off. Is he all right?
He's all good.
Okay, we got eyes on Dad. Good.
But look, we're fully invested in that sense. I think it made it clear that if there's external investment that can help us in what we want to achieve, then we'd be fully interested in that. But that's just natural succession planning, wanting to make sure that the club is in good hands going forward. You talked about a number of other clubs who have difficulties or whatever. It's not like you can get to a point where you're like, all right, well, now's probably the right time and start looking then, because then it depends who's interested, right? We whether it happens or doesn't happen, if it does happen, you want someone who works with you and works to get everything you want and doesn't tear down what you've done. And we're from here, we care about it, you know. I've been involved emotionally one way or other for 34, 35 years. It's not something you want to go, you have a go.
Yeah, it's true.
See what happens.
There's easier things you could be doing.
No, but it's like, if you care about it, you're not going to want to just say, all right, we've had enough, someone else have a go. You want to say, right, if that does come along and you think someone's got a genuine better chance of you or can work with you and has the same sort of thinking, but can add to either your expertise or your finances, then great.
Well, talking about that outside of investment, obviously Richard Gould was was involved. Then Phil Alexander. Is there going to be anyone else looking to to kind of take that role on a more full-time position, or?
No, in terms of where we are now, we had Brian Tinnion's role is what's changed in that right. time. He's grown into that. There isn't with how commercial and everything else is run with our setup. There isn't really the need for your typical chief executive. We've got Tom Rawcliffe, who's running it in an operations point of view. From that point, you've got Gavin Marshall, who sits on the board, who's chief executive of group in that sense. So you've got what you need, and then we try and put ourselves in a position where you've got as much advice as well, whether it's people who are advising on our board with real expertise, and that's what you're looking for, things that can bring something to us. Well,
let's talk about Nigel Pearson then, because obviously Nigel is left very recently, and it's always difficult to know, because obviously from a fan's perspective, you're injuries being what they were, or what we not miles away from the playoffs, certainly closer to the playoffs than we were in relegation, and a lot of young academy players coming through. There aren't people that are were really necessarily baying for his head. Why did you make that decision to make the change when you did?
Yeah, look, I started by going back to the bit. All I want is success for the club.
Yeah.
And I think if you look back, Nigel's been here for 2.5 years. We've been through ups and downs at that time. Probably wouldn't have to project back more than, would be less than 12 months to say, you could probably say a good proportion of the fan base would have wanted him gone. So we've stuck through him through sort of thick and thin, and he's done really good things. We've mentioned the academy. He's been really good with the women's team. We are in a better place on and off the pitch in that sense from when it started. But you've got a 3-year contract, as it were, a 3-year program, and we're in the last bit of that.
Yeah.
And the last bit of that is right. You hear about having to cut back and things like that. There were some contracts coming out, but we're still a top 10 budget in the division.
Yeah.
And we've got the facility and we've got stability, we do give our managers opportunity. And we've really got to be looking at, we've got the ability to outperform that budget. So we're in that crunch phase of that contract where we need to be looking at the top bit. Now, you can talk about other things and the injuries and things to talk about separately, but the reality is we looked at it and we're not doing as well as we'd hoped or want to do. So you've got a manager coming out of contract, you're not performing to where you want to, and I think he would want to be doing better as well, and that's what the decision's based off.
I know that people were saying things about Nigel being in poor health maybe, and obviously there were problems with like, you know, injuries and stuff, people coming back from the international break. Like, I mean, there's so many people, and like, you know, people have got that tendency to hypothesize, because when they haven't got the facts, then they try and fill that void with, like, you know, speculation and rumour. Is there anything definitively we can talk about, like, you know, because, you know, for me, it looks like maybe from a club's point of view, you have not only maybe a legal responsibility to not say certain things, but maybe you've got a moral responsibility, and that might mean that, you know, because of that moral responsibility, you personally like feel like you may be thrown under a bus. Is that fair to say, or not?
Look, I think we're honest in that respect, and we have high morals. So like, you never want to be talking out of turn, and there's obviously things you can't say. But you know, I'll freely admit our communication's not been as good as it should have been, and that's not just now. That's sort of over the last 12 months or so. I mean, that's something we need to address and look at doing. And that has to get better. I mean, if we're keeping people in the loop as much as we can leading up to things, you're not reactionary in a time like this. So it's not our fans' fault that they're trying to fill the gaps.
No.
We should have been filling some of those gaps for them prior to this, but it's a very difficult position to fill them all at once when you can only say part of it anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, going on other things you've said, if you're talking about injuries and things like that in the last, you know, I'd say over the last 7 or 8 weeks, we've probably not been giving the players the best platform we possibly could have done, training-wise, whatever else, to achieve what they want to do. Of course, that goes into your thinking. Whatever the reasons are, there's multiple reasons.
Right.
International breaks, we took 9 days off in the first one and 10 days off in the second one, which is pretty much unheard of at this level.
Right.
So, and you look what we pride ourselves on. We came into this season really well conditioned, really good physically. We heard all about it.
You
can see it when we're playing as well. I believe we've been at real risk of deconditioning ourselves in those international breaks.
Right.
So it doesn't, you know, those things combined with everything else we've talked about, there's lots of things that lead you to those decisions that, you know, and I can sit here and ask people, you know, trust me, all I care about is the club. You're going to make the best decision you think possible. But at the same time, I'm not speaking ill of anyone, so, and they can't have the full information, but I try and tell you what I can.
Fair play. Well, going forward then, let's look for, like, you know, let's see what comes next. Obviously, Curtis is out there right now, working hard. But you know, is there going to be an imminent decision based on the next gaffer of Bristol City Football Club?
Yeah, I mean, we'll be looking to do it as quickly as we possibly can. You spoke about morals. We're not someone who's going to line someone up before we do something, because we're not going to. That's not the way we operate.
Right.
What we do is the same you do with players. Is you are tracking people that you think might be suitable, because you never know at what point you're going to need it. It's a sensible thing to do. It's a difficult thing to do, because you're obviously loyal to whoever's in charge while you're doing it, but you've got to have your ear to the ground at the same time. So we know what we want to achieve in terms of how we want to play, what we want to do, the level of coaching we're looking for. So we've got a very focused thing of what we want. But again, it probably goes back to communication. I don't think that's out there, because I can see what we're linked to and everything else, and it's not that. So, you know, that goes to show that we need to get our message out better. It's not been a huge amount of time that we've been on that path, but I mean, 18 months is quite a while. So I would have hoped people knew what we would be looking for better than they do.
Well, I'd like you to know that on playing the game Football Manager, I have taken Bristol City to back-to-back Champions League finals, won them, and in fact, I think thanks to the Lansdowns, I've had a stadium named after myself, so it's gone very well. So I'd like to throw me out in a ring at this stage. If you've not made your mind up yet, this kind of expansive, free-flowing football, are you keen to take my CV seriously?
I think you've done pretty good at your current job, Joe. So I mean, I'm not sure they'd be pleased to hear that, right?
Yeah.
No, I mean, look, and that's the point. We are. When I say it's focused, we're not going to interview loads of people. There's no point. You do the work first. Yes, you've got to make sure you're making the right choice. But anyone we'd speak to you would be happy to be your head coach. That's the point you want, rather than just to say you've spoken to X or Y or whatever else. So for me, it's about the detail and the work, and then making sure you've got it. And I think, to be honest, if it's more focused, hopefully it can then happen in good time.
Right, so and the rumour is that Pep Guardiola is walking down North Street to be scotched at the moment.
He might be. It's a lovely park.
Right, it is a lovely park, Bristol.
I think he's doing all right.
Yeah, I think he's doing okay as well. I mean, like, you know, for a City fan's point of view, then what are we looking for? Like, you know, are we looking for, you know, a certain brand of football, or are we looking for, like, you know, like by any means necessary get us to the Premier League, and maybe that's like, you know, the style of football's a secondary.
And it's not, I don't necessarily think it is a style of football, but I don't want to get caught talking about football terms because I'm not. You've got better people qualified than that than me, but we are looking for specific traits, particular coaching ability,
right?
Because it's that level of detail. If you talked about our advantages, you want to have a physical and a fitness advantage. So there's things that you can do on the pitch. You want to have your academy players to be able to do that because, you know, if not as many injuries as we've got now, but if you need a next man up or someone in the squad, you want someone to be able to come in and not really have a huge difference. So, you know, what we're trying to provide whoever's going to lead it the best platform, and also the players the best platform to improve that, you know, with the detail and the knowledge behind it, how you're going to play and how you're going to train, that you're giving everyone the best possible chance to succeed.
How many interviews do you go through with people? So you get a shortlist, right? And we'll say that you might have, 3-5 people on a shortlist that will come in and interview people that you were happy to take over this football club should they need. Like, how intense is that interview? Because, like, you know, it's such a massive job. It isn't one of those things like, you know, have a quick half hour with them, go, yeah, they seem all right, and give them a massive contract. Like, how forensic have you got to be?
Oh, it's intense, and you try and do the work beforehand. So, you know, we'll be judging them based on stats, what they've said, what people say about them, anyone we know. You do your full as much as you can, because it's the same with any interview, right? You're only getting a snapshot, and, you know, with modern day coaching, you're going to get an impressive presentation and everything else, but you're trying to get a feel for them, a feel for their commitment. But the reality is you've done a lot of the work before that, and you're hoping to, you know, what are you looking for? You're looking for something that sets them apart from someone else you're considering. Who's
in that room? Obviously you're there, the potential new gaffer is there. Anyone else?
Yeah, so me and Brian will lead it, and then you know, we'll have other people in our teams, whether it's analytics or whatever else.
For anyone not.
Yeah, so, you know, you don't want to outnumber people too much, so we'll have me and Brian and another doing it.
And will they bring their representation, or they go in on the ring?
No, it's normally just a one person.
And do you consult like senior pros, do you talk about talk club captains or senior pros in terms of, does that play into your thinking of potential new gaffers or no?
No, I don't think so. I think you get an idea of what we've got. A really good group of players. You know, they want to be coached. You know, they want the best for them as well, and the team. So I mean, we believe in their ability. That's why you're making a change, and they believe it too. So, you know, they'll be hoping that we make a good decision and they enjoy working with them. But I mean, all you can do in the meantime is kind of, you know, explain to them what it is you're looking for, what it might be like for them, you know, because they want to help. Okay. And they obviously want what's best for them and us. And
I'd be remiss of me if I didn't say Frank Lampard's gone the 1-4 on today. Can you say whether that's looking likely, or is he someone in your contemplation?
You know, I can't comment on individuals, and I don't want to.
Well, hang on. You said that I definitely wasn't going to get a job, so you know, I thought me and Frank were similar. I'm not quite as good in the middle of the park.
I don't want to be accused of affecting betting markets either. But I said before, like, I was really surprised when I saw the list and how far away it was from what we're looking at.
Really?
Yeah. So,
okay.
but like, that says we haven't got our message out there.
Okay. Because Alan Kirby seems to be turning up on everything. He's not managed anyone for about 20 years. What are you most proud of, and what are you most frustrated by in your time there?
Oh, I suppose if you look back, you're most proud of how far it's come.
Yeah.
You know, you've got the stadium, which we've had for a while now, so you kind of take it for granted. You've got this place, and the people. It's all about the people that fill it. You know, the frustration for me is there's a lot of energy and effort over the years, certainly from my dad's point of view as well, where, you know, you want to deliver a lasting legacy if you can, and we have, because you've got the facilities and everything else.
Yeah, we're in it.
But the city needs that next thing, and you know how much difference that'll make. So, that's what drives me. Is you want the icing on the cake in terms of we've put something in position that has then got us there, and if I can help do that and we can do it while I'm here, that'd be great.
So you're like, and what would you say you're most frustrated by?
Well, just not having got close yet. I mean, we have when we first come up. But look, we've gone through a phase part of what gets talked about why we've had to kind of go through that stage of not resetting, but we had a good go at it and it didn't work. So then you've got the consequences of that, and you've had COVID with it. I don't want to bang on about, what that's done to finances and how frustrating that is and how difficult that is to get through when you're basically spending a load of money for nothing. But we're at a stage now where we have got a quality squad under contract, the ones mostly under contract to go forward, so you've got that consistency, and if you keep adding to it in the right areas, then you've got a real platform for someone to give it a good go at.
Because I mean, that's the thing that I always struggle with, like the financial fair play just absolutely boggles my mind, and how close we've been to kind of breaching because it's very easy just to turn around and just go, wow, £25 million or £20 odd million for Alex Scott when we should be throwing out the first team, and maybe there's an argument to that, we should more of that money been invested in the first team. I don't know, but the thing is like, how do you balance the books? Because you see what's happening to Reading at the moment is frightening. Derby, they're like teams with massive pedigree that are really, really struggling to kind of find their feet again.
And I'll start with the first bit. I mean, if you go back to when Mark Ashton was here, look, we were a club that we increased our wage bill quite considerably to try and compete at the top of the table.
Yeah.
And what did we did that on the back of? We did it on the back of having signed young hungry players, and then.
Do you mean Adam Naj?
but with the ability to either take us with them or to sell on and make a margin that would allow you to pay the higher wages.
Right.
So that and to be fair, we've sold Webster and Lloyd Kelly through the academy, so slightly different routes, but you've had. You've seen that working to an extent for a number of years in terms of not getting there, but what you've set out to do does what you can have a higher wage budget doing that. But you have COVID strike and you can't sell players because no one's buying them. So then you've got a high wage bill. You've got none of the bit to cover it.
Yeah. And
you're struggling at that point as well, performance-wise. So you've got kind of a trifecta of issues at that point. So, rightly or wrongly, that's the way you tried to do it. And when we spent money, we probably, in hindsight, didn't spend it well. There's nothing against those players; it's not their fault.
No, of course.
But what we would have relied on them to get there hasn't happened. And then you've got to wait till that works its way through, and it's blooming painful while it does. So, out the other side of that now, and looking to build it in a more, the word sustainable is not great in football, is it? Because it's not sustainable. But in a way where you can improve, and then push yourself over the edge, rather than putting yourself in a position where if you don't push yourself over the edge, you set yourself back. What you want to do is when you have a push, if you make it, great. If you don't make it, you can still have a push.
Yeah.
You can still have a push. That's what you want to. You just want to keep getting continually
without just
better.
Getting swallowed up and just wrecked.
Correct.
Yeah.
And if we're going to lose players along the way to that, because you can't. Look, from our point of view, you can't fall in love with your players. In that sense, of course you
can.
Of course you love them. Of course you love them. But in that sense, I talk about Alex Scott. Could you keep Alex Scott? Well, you could, but it's not. Probably not best for him at that point.
No, absolutely.
So,
I suppose that's the thing as well. You've got to think about those players themselves. I remember Bobby Reid. The bloke you want to be on Match of the Day. You've got a finite career presumably as well. You're retired when you're 32, 33. So, how hard is it to keep a player that don't want to stay? I'm not saying that Alex did want to, whatever. But
look, Alex was as good as gold. But anyone's going to want to go at a point.
Yeah.
So it's not. It's absolutely no slight in that sense, but you've got to be in the stage where why would they want to go?
Yeah,
because they're going with you.
Yeah,
and that's what you're working towards. But before you get there, you're going to have and you have a bit of that. But the most important point is your recruitment makes you get continuously better, and then you get there.
We've talked about Alex Scott before, and obviously a load of fans are going to be, wondering, it's not an insignificant amount of money. It's north of £20 million, and wanting to see that reinvested in the playing squad. Is that something that we're looking to do in January or further down the line?
Yeah, in the summer was difficult in that sense because you're planning a summer where, your recruitment teams knows what they want to try and do early. And you've got this thing there that may or may not happen. So you've got two options. You either wait and see if it happens, or you do what you want to do on the assumption it's going to happen. The problem with that second route is the optics aren't the same. So we made the decision to run a budget based on the probability that Alex would get sold towards the end of the window. There's a risk to that, because if he doesn't, then the budget's a lot harder this year, and you're taking the risk that it will get pushed into the window after that. But if something happens, again, you could cause yourself a bit of difficulty. But we don't want to be in the situation where you're late in a window and people think you've got a load of money to spend. So we made our signings based on that. Jason Knight, for example, others. Yeah. But I get it. If I was a fan and I say you sold him for that, you haven't spent any of it. Well, John's saying you spent it before. I don't believe that. Fine, that's the way it's planned, and also the money doesn't come in all at once. So what it does, from our point of view, is it allows you to be prepared for the next windows when they come around. Okay. January's never the best time. No. So, but if you can bring something you wanted to do in the summer forward to January and it works, you do it.
Well, presumably as well, with a new manager, they'll have their own thoughts and ideas about who maybe they'd like to bring in too, right?
Correct, and and the way we work, that'll be more about what they feel we need within a squad, and then you'd never sign someone the head coach doesn't want, but you do have a recruitment team that would help identify. They'd be one saying, I need this position and I need these qualities out of them, and then they'd obviously have final say, but someone else goes away and does. You don't really get the situation anymore where you go, I want Joe Sims, because it doesn't.
I don't think anyone wants that. I mean, if you think I'd be a terrible manager, I'd be even worse centre half.
But and look, it's just the risk. What it will do is it will set us up for future windows to be able to do the things we want to do and do them early. And I think that really put us ahead of people, certainly this summer. Yeah. And for me, the biggest benefit out of Alex Scott's deal is that sense that when you go into the next window, if there's something you want to do and you can identify it, you can do it, where other clubs can't. Right. So it's not going to allow you to go and blow your spending and blow your wage budget by going on a spree, but it will allow you to do exactly what you want to do when you want to do it.
To be calculated and front-footed.
Correct. So that and that's a much better advantage. You talk about other clubs. There's not a lot of clubs in the situation where they can go, right, January's a bad example, but if you say, right, May, who do we want? And you'd be able to go, I can do it. I can offer it to you. Do you want to take it? And there's a big difference with that for others that go in, well, we might have to sell someone first, or are not sure where everything's going to balance out, and that gives you a competitive advantage.
Do you feel that year on year we're moving in the right direction, and we're getting closer to the end goal, which is Premiership football?
It's easy for me to say, because if you look at the table, we're not. So, and that's partly why you're doing what you're doing, because yes, I do think certainly over the last 18 months we're making a lot of progress in terms of how we're set up. The recruitment's far more focused. It's like the manager research now will be far more focused. Who's going to lead it? So all that does is going to make you make better decisions.
And with regards to that manager, whether it be me, Frank Lampard, or somebody else, will that person have a war chest to be able to kind of to spend some money in January or?
I'd never call it a war chest. I mean, we look to reinvest a percentage of transfer fees in, and then you've got your wage bill that you want to stick to. So you're never going to get an amount of money and spend it all, because if you did, you'd probably be going above the wages you want to spend. So it's about being smart with it, and look, it's not set. You can, if the time's right in the future, I'm sure you do what you think's right. But believe within that, that's where you're going to get your success, because it's not all about what you're spending. You've also got to spend a certain amount to try and compete, but you're never going to compete with the parachute payments. They're always going to have 2 or 3 times your wage budget.
That's got to be one of the most frustrating things as a chairman of a football club.
It is, but so how do you bridge that gap? Well, you've got to bridge it by know what you're doing in terms of be focused, stick to it, and try and get better at it. Because if you're trying to sign the same players they are, they probably shouldn't be coming to you, because otherwise you'd be worried what's wrong with them, because they're gonna pay more. But you do it in making sure that you are finding value where others aren't, and players that suit you. Loads of teams show that it can be done. You've just got to put yourself in position that it can. And you look at the Championship this year, there's, for want of a better word, there's a huge blob of teams in the middle where, they're there one week, they're there the next. Yeah, and it doesn't, what are the things that make a difference to that? Is it, it's things like fitness, there'll be a bit of luck, it'll be coaching.
Yeah.
Other than that, if you break it down, there's not too many teams we played this year, and I thought they've blown us away, and I thought, oh.
Well, when you think about last year, when you got Coventry and Luton duking it out to take that playoff spot in the Premiership, that's got to be frustrating, because in terms of infrastructure, in terms of spend, both them teams, nowhere close, right?
Yeah, I mean Luton especially so, but fair play to them. They found whether it's a camaraderie, togetherness, coaching. I mean, fair play. They show it can be done. So, that's where you look at it, and our expectations seem to have been lowered. We've got these facilities, we've got stability, we've got a top half budget. You've got the ability to outperform that budget, so why not?
So what would you say, and finally, would say a sort of 3 to 5 year plan for Bristol City would look like? What does that look like for you as the chairman of Bristol City Football Club?
Well, we've done a lot of the bigger things apart from the achievement. For now, it's got to be improvement of that first team. And continual improvement. That Brian, the team, everyone else won't be starting to work endlessly to try and improve. And that's the academy, that's the recruitment of the players, it's everything. So, look, for me, it's just about trying to deliver something for us and for that and for the city that we can all be proud of. That's it, really.
Seems like a fantastic message to leave us with. Jon, thanks very much for taking the time, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks,
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks.